Well, yesterday in a court in San Jose, California, Elizabeth Holmes, founder of the once fated company Theranos, was found guilty of 4 counts of fraud. Holmes claimed that the allegedly transformative nanotainer technology she developed would draw, retain, and analyze a droplet of blood from a patient's fingertip, and if used in her company's proprietary Edison texting technology, would run a multitude of tests on a patient's physiology within minutes and at a fraction of the cost of current technology at the time. That sounds geeky and boring, and why should we care? But the story of Elizabeth Holmes and Theranos is what I think is a very good example of just how far and how much the acceptable aesthetic can get you in capitalist America, even if it endangers people's lives. Holmes started Theranos in 2003 when she was 19 years old, dropping out of Stanford University, where she was a chemical and electrical engineering student. Somehow, she raised $6.9 million by the very next year, and the company was valued at $30 million. 3 years later, the company was valued at $197 million after Holmes and her business partner, ex-boyfriend, and company president, Ramesh Sunny Balwani, raised another $43.2 million. For 10 years, behind the scenes, Holmes raised hundreds of millions of dollars from private investors and introduced the company publicly in 2013, although it never was publicly traded. By 2014, Holmes's company Theranos was valued at $9 billion. She was a multi-billionaire, and Holmes and her company became the new darlings of American investment and technology circles. She was compared to Steve Jobs, and oddly, she even dressed and sort of carried herself in that weird, enigmatic, detached Steve Jobs kind of way. Mind you, throughout all of this time, Holmes's proprietary technology that she was talking about and raising money on was never approved by any medical body in the US, and she really never was clear on how or really whether any of the technology actually worked. But that didn't matter to Capital Blue Cross Blue Shield that chose Theranos as its preferred lab work provider in 2015, or retailers like Walgreens and Safeway that partnered with Theranos or tried to set up wellness clinics in their stores. The lies that Elizabeth Holmes told, that her technology and company would revolutionize health technology, also attracted top-tier private investors like James Mattis, the former Secretary of Defense, who sat on Theranos' board, Lisa Peterson, who managed money for the wealthy family of former Education Secretary Betsy DeVos, and who invested $100 million in Theranos. Also, Rupert Murdoch and Larry Ellison, and two former Secretaries of State, not one but two, George Shultz and Henry Kissinger. They sat on the board of Theranos. But the thing is, the stuff didn't work. And by 2015, the lies began to be exposed. First in a series of Wall Street Journal articles criticizing the company, then the FDA released reports from their ongoing investigation into the company, and then in 2016, the Centers for Medicare and Medicaid Services stated that a California-based lab used by Theranos posed, quote, immediate jeopardy to patient health and safety. Finally, in 2018, the Securities and Exchange Commission charged Theranos, its founder, Elizabeth Holmes, and its former president, Ramesh Balwani, with massive fraud. The two were indicted on wire fraud by a federal grand jury, and the U.S. Attorney's Office stated that in order to promote Theranos, both Holmes and Balwani, quote, engaged in a multi-million-dollar scheme to defraud investors and a separate scheme to defraud doctors and patients. Monday, Holmes was convicted of defrauding investors, but not defrauding patients, which is really weird to me. According to the New York Times, jurors believed the evidence presented by prosecutors that showed Holmes lied to investors about Theranos' technology in the pursuit of money and fame, but they did not believe the prosecutor's case that she had defrauded patients. So she was not found guilty of additional charges for defrauding patients. But let's be clear here. Holmes claimed to have developed blood tests that required only small amounts of blood and devices that could quickly perform a wide array of tests that could diagnose diseases and conditions quickly without repeated blood draws that would change not only medical testing technology, but drastically improve health outcomes for millions. And based on those claims that were absolutely unproven and patently untrue from the beginning, Holmes raised about $724 million of capital from venture capitalists and private investors. And Theranos, the company that she created, that she lied about, produced thousands of inaccurate test results for patients, including false positives for HIV, false positives for miscarriages or pregnancies, false positives for autoimmune diseases, that resulted in additional and completely unnecessary medical appointments, procedures, costs, and heartache and worry to real-life human beings who are not filthy rich private investors. The lies about the technology that impacted the patients is what made Holmes rich. So she did, in fact, defraud and pose a danger to the lives of people. But when you're a pretty doe-eyed blonde with a gift for being charmingly enigmatic and vague, like tech god Steve Jobs was, you can indeed get away with posing a threat to regular people. But stealing from the rich, oh, that's a bridge too far. And that's a crime you can't commit in a capitalist country where healthcare is not a right for everyone, but it's an attractive investment scheme for the rich. Follow Luke Ma Nation on patreon.com/LukeMaNation for lots of great content.